The Reds are still in the race. No, not the race that you're thinking of, though.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr, and I'm a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. And plus, I've been hosting this podcast now for 6 seasons, and I am the channel manager for the Locked On MLB channel, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And I'm bringing you your Cincinnati Reds every single day, free and available on all platforms. It's always free. We got all the content about your Cincinnati Reds every single day. Make sure that you follow along with us all throughout the rest of this season, all throughout the offseason, because we'll be with you every single day talking Reds baseball. And I'm so glad that you're alongside me here today, because when it comes to this pitching situation that the Reds have, there's a couple of pitchers that I think that the Reds should keep, no matter how interesting their contract situations happen to be. I'll tell you why later on in today's show. The Reds avoided a sweep in Flushing, Queens, thanks to some timely hitting from a key player, and he's going to be here with us next season, plus some good pitching as well. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, though, because I want to start with the race that the Reds are very much alive in right now. And that's all coming up on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. Because now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we will get started today is with the race that the Reds are in. It's really the race that they were positioned to be in from the beginning of the season. No, it's not the playoff race, as much as Steve and myself and probably you thought they would be. The race to be the most interesting 500 ball club. In fact, the Reds need to go 12-6 in their final 18 games to reach management's ultimate goal. After winning the final game of the series in Queens, these hopes are still alive for the Reds because, look, all they got to do, they beat the Braves tonight. And then, in the final 6 series of the season, all they got to do is lose only one game, each of those series. The final 6. They only have to split with Cleveland. They got to go 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh. They could do that. 2 out of 3 against Chicago. They could do that. 2 out of 3 against St. Louis. Come on. 2 out of 3 against Atlanta. Might be a little bit more tough, but hey, they're hurt. 2 out of 3 against Minnesota. A little bit of a toss-up there. But that's what I'm talking about here. The Reds are in this thing, man. Look, this team was set up at the beginning of the season to be the most interesting 500 ball club in Major League Baseball. Yes, look, I know. Might have really jumped ahead of ourselves here thinking that they were going to make the playoffs because they had a clear outfield deficiency, but it could be solved with young players improving. They had a clear starting pitching deficiency, but that could be solved by young players improving. They had a clear lineup deficiency as far as consistency goes, but hey, that could be solved, say it with me, by young players improving. And they also had some clear injury issues with key players, but hey, that could be solved at a miracle, I think, back then, because they really didn't make any moves to cover up those injuries. But look, with the roster that the Reds had on opening day, if you catch lightning in a bottle, you're a playoff team. But look, we were wrong to expect that, obviously, because if you don't catch lightning in a bottle, then you're good enough to stay relevant long enough to keep people happy enough. That's what this team was set up for. They didn't spend money on the deficiencies that we saw early on in the offseason. There were some key pieces that the Reds needed. And we were talking about them in October whenever we were watching the playoffs, we were watching other teams, we're saying this is what the Reds need next year. Because it seems like they have the makings of a core. Now, quite frankly, let's look at some of these points here because the clear outfield deficiency never got solved. In fact, it got worse because TJ Friedl remained an injury concern all year long. Will Benson, not only did he not hit lefties, he stopped hitting righties. Jake Fraley lost power for myriads of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. Look, all these guys are human. They go through a lot of stuff. Jake Fraley went through a lot of stuff this year that none of us fully comprehend. Hopefully he is coming out on the other side of that, though, on the baseball field. Far less important than a lot of the stuff he was dealing with, but it's good to see some of the power return a little bit. And Spencer Steer was called into the infield more times than not because of all of the injuries early on, so you had to play some outfielders like Stuart Fairchild, and we saw some other players that, okay, they work in situations, they work in, bite-sized samples, but I don't know that they're going to be here long-term. That's really what the Reds set themselves up with in the outfield. Now think about starting pitching for a minute. This worked out because they went and they got a guy who had to have his arm reattached, and Frankie Montas hadn't pitched in over a year. Well, he pitched 1 inning in 2023. And they were going to tab him to be the opening day starter. He was going to go out every 5th day. He was going to be a key addition to this rotation. Sometimes he was and sometimes he wasn't. Meanwhile, you were asking a lot of your young rotation who started to turn a corner last season in 2023, but didn't quite get there. Hunter Green got there. And for the first 2 months of the season, Nick Lodolo got there. But then Nick Lodolo had some issues, had to regrip his main pitch. Now he still has question marks. Andrew Abbott seems like he might be turning that corner as well. Currently dealing with injuries. Graham Ashcraft might be a bullpen guy. Hopefully Brandon Williamson can be that guy, although he's not. I don't think he can answer questions. The only question that he is answering currently, and he is answering it well, is that he is healthy. But look, this is part of the thing. They came into the season with a clear deficiency in starting pitching, and their gamble kind of paid off for the most part. The biggest problem was it paid off without the lineup paying off, without the outfield paying off, and quite frankly, without the defense paying off either. Although I think they punted that. I don't think they entered this season thinking anything of their own fielding. They're like, it's going to figure itself out along the way. But this is what I'm looking at. And tell me if I'm wrong. I would love to hear that in the comments section here. If you're watching on YouTube, or hit me up on X at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. Tell me if I'm wrong. But look, I look at this roster, and back in March, I was buying in, man. I thought that this stuff could happen because I felt as though I was sold very well on this happening. But hindsight's 2020, and hindsight's telling me they thought they were a 500 ball club on opening day. With some help and some lightning in a bottle, they could be a playoff team. But you know how much lightning in a bottle costs? Not near as much as a consistent middle-of-the-order, right-handed, power-hitting outfielder. Not near as much as a legitimate, top-of-the-line starting pitcher. And not near as much as players who can replace guys on the injured list. Because a lot of it's just the luck of the draw, and the luck did not fall the Reds' way this year. But look, betting on luck, it's a bad bet, man. Hopefully, we do not do the same thing for 2025, because there are clear deficiencies for this team moving into next season. We'll be talking a lot about that all throughout the offseason, so make sure you keep it with us all the way. But look, the Reds still have a shot at their ultimate goal. They can still hit 500. They go 12-6 between now and the end of the year. We're cooking with gas, partner. We're at 81-81, and the most interesting team, which we'll do this here later this week and compare the Cincinnati Reds to other 500 ball clubs, and I think you'll agree they're far more interesting. But hey, what does Santiago Espinal, Julian Aguiar, Tony Santillan, Emilio Pagan, Justin Wilson, Buck Farmer, and Alexis Díaz all have in common? Find out next. Now is the perfect time of year to get into FanDuel because you've got baseball. You've also got football is back now. I lost a few bucks this weekend on football, college and pro. But hey, that's beside the point because when you place a $5 bet, whether you are a new user or a old user, you can get 3 weeks free of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. All you have to do is place a $5 bet and boom, you're in. Then, with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And with that $5, the LE Parlay, it's still there. We're still playing 18 more games, 18 more chances to get that LE Parlay. What's the LE Parlay? 2+ total bases, 1+ steals, 1+ runs scored. Usually pays out about 4-1. Check it out today over at FanDuel. Put $5 on it and get some free NFL Sunday Ticket while you're at it. Because FanDuel.com/LockedOn gets you into America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Reds your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen now, check out Locked On MLB because Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, has you covered every single day around the league with the biggest news and the biggest stories leading up to the playoffs. He's going to get you ready for the playoffs, Will Sully, and he's going to sprinkle in a bit of his trademark humor and wit as well. That's Locked On MLB. It's just like Locked On Reds, free and available on all platforms and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast, speaking of those who check us out every single day, shout out to our everydayers. On the next Locked On Reds, will the journey to 500 get started off on the right foot in Atlanta? Okay, I say started, we mean continued. We're 144 games into it. You're not starting something 144 games into it. Will it get going? Keep going, keep rolling in Atlanta. The weird one game in Atlanta on Monday night, the makeup game that I actually have tickets to. I'm trying to sell. If anybody is in Atlanta and needs tickets, please go on SeatGeek or hit me up. Maybe I can send you links to it or something. I'm not going to be able to go. But hey, the Reds avoided a sweep. They fall 2 games out of the 3 in Flushing, Queens, but on Sunday they got the win because Santiago Espinal and the Reds pitching staff were clutch on Sunday. Yes, I rattled off a lot of names from the pitching staff, but look, it really kind of hung on the fact that the Reds dropped the first 2 games of the series, and if you fancy yourself the most interesting 500 ball club in Major League Baseball, you got to win at least one of these 3. Look, the Mets are a wild card team. They're probably going to take over the Braves spot. I know them and the Braves are neck and neck. The Braves are much more hurt. The Mets really look like they're hitting their stride. We saw that firsthand over the weekend. But they, after losing those first 2 games, which, by the way, when the Reds lose the first 2 games of a series, they've lost every single series that's happened in. That includes the 4-gamers, too. There's a little bit of sarcasm in there, but even in the 4-game sets that they lose the first 2 games of, they lose that series every time. But hey, they get a clutch win on Sunday to avoid that sweep. Big thanks in part to Santiago Espinal. He was 2 for 4, had the game-winning, basically, the difference in the game, RBIs in the top of the 9th inning. Clutch stuff with runners on second and third and 1 out. Knocks a single into left field, scoring both guys. Absolutely love to see it. And he is, I think it's worth mentioning, I'll probably mention it a lot of times between now and next year, and maybe even through next year as well. He is under team control, meaning he is still in the arbitration process for the next 2 seasons. This year, total, he made $2.75 million. After the Reds acquired him from the Toronto Blue Jays, that was the number that he and the Blue Jays had settled on. So he's probably going to get a raise. I don't know that it'll be much higher than that. You're still talking about a really solid dude who's going to be a rotational guy sitting on your bench that you can count on in a lot of different situations, probably around $5 million, maybe a little bit less. Don't necessarily have a grasp on how these things increase in arbitration, but he'll definitely get a raise. He's played pretty well this year, especially the second half of the season. But I don't think he'll be a starter for the Reds next year because I think the infield's going to move in a way that he will not be a starter if everyone is healthy, but he is going to be a great, I'm going to say it, a great bench option. Not solid, not above average, something. He's going to be a great bench option. Like, think Skip Schumacher, but better. Something like that. But I love the fact that the Reds got him. He has been one of the best acquisitions that Nick Krall made in 2024. And then you couple his clutch performance in the ninth inning, and really for the whole game, but especially in the ninth inning, you couple that with the pitching, because Julian Aguiar had a solid 4 2/3. Look, he's not going to be a guy that pushes for the opening day starting rotation, but he's going to be solid depth in Louisville next year. He threw 90 pitches in those 4 2/3 on Sunday's win, but he limited the damage, limited the base runners. There were only 4 guys that got on base against him, 2 hits and 2 walks, and he had 2 strikeouts. Like I said, he's not going to be a guy that lights up the stat sheets by any stretch of the imagination, but he's going to be a solid option should the Reds need him. And quite frankly, they will, because we have not seen a season. 2012, when it comes to 2025, it's going to be 13 years ago. By the time we get to 2025, 13 years ago. That was the last time that the Reds only needed 5 starting pitchers. And oh, by the way, they needed 6 because Todd Redmond had to start that 1 doubleheader game. So he was your 6th different pitcher to start a game in 2012. But that is so rare that, yes, your opening day starting 5 is very, very important. And who makes that starting 5 is very, very important. But it's also very, very important to have a 6th guy, a 7th guy, an 8th guy, quite frankly, a 9th guy. And really, we can make an argument for a 10th guy. I kind of feel like it's that scene in The Office whenever Jim is trying to egg on Dwight and he's just like, the apocalypse happened in like 350 days. That's crazy, right? Yeah, I can see that happening. Yeah, 351 days, and he just kept going up. There is no number of starting pitchers. There is no such thing as having too many starting pitchers. Julian Aguiar will definitely be a good option for that next year. But then we look at the guys in the bullpen on Sunday. Very clutch performances. Tony Santillan wasn't perfect. He did allow 3 base runners, but he limited the damage, only allowed the 1 run. The Mets only had 4 hits on the day. 2 of them came off of Tony Santillan, but I mean, he did a good job of limiting the damage. You're never going to keep the base passes clean every time you go out and pitch. Tony Santillan proved that on Sunday, but he still pitched around the base runners. And then Emilio Pagan bails him out, gets the 1 out. What a signing Pagan has been. I don't know. That's going to be an interesting review when we look back on his season with all the injuries and the up and down performances. But hey, Sunday, he needed to get 1 out, and he got that 1 out. Then Justin Wilson, Buck Farmer, and Alexis Díaz combine for a perfect 3 final innings of baseball against the Mets at home. And I think it's interesting to note this because, the perfect part of this, no walks, no hits, but they faced Francisco Lindor a couple of times, and Francisco Lindor came into this with the franchise record for the New York Mets in on-base, or, his on-base streak. He set the record on Saturday. So dude was just rolling, feeling, NBA Jam, he's on fire. He was on fire like 2 weeks ago, and he's been on fire ever since. The Reds shut him down on Sunday. And a big part of that was Justin Wilson, Buck Farmer, and Alexis Díaz. 2 of the more frustrating parts of this bullpen all year long. And Buck Farmer has been solid, but quite frankly, if you look past his ERA, you kind of see he's gotten a little bit lucky with the fact that his ERA is under 3, but he still had a solid season so far. And Alexis Díaz, hey, that's his 4th straight appearance here in September of perfect pitching. He has not allowed a base runner in the month of September. And now that I've said that, his next appearance, he's going to allow a run. So get ready for that. But overall, Santiago Espinal, the pitching, and quite frankly, the diving catch from Elly De La Cruz. Did you see that highlight? By the way, go check that out. Amazing. I can't play. I wish I could. I can't play the video here. But he ranges over, does that crazy thing. It's a fly ball that's going to fall into no man's land between the left fielder and the third baseman. But Elly says no because he ranges over, lays out for it, gets it. He's amazing. He can do anything. Clutch. Just absolutely clutch. And hey, the race for 500 stays alive. But kind of getting out of all of that for a minute, there are two pitchers who are currently on the roster that the Reds absolutely need to keep for next year, no matter how convoluted their contract situations are. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also the formula to keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They've got superchargers, they've got roof racks, they've got LED headlights, they've got exhaust kits, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, it's easy to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. Also, make sure you bookmark CincinnatiRedsTalk.com. I'm writing over there. James Rapin's writing over there. Greg Kuffner at Reds Daily over on X is writing over there as well. Great folks writing about Reds baseball as we get to the end of the season and into an offseason that's sure to be interesting. Because part of that offseason should include keeping the weird law firm of Junis and Martinez together. Because these two guys make the Reds pitching staff so versatile. Think about Jakob Junis for a minute. And Nick Martinez, really. Nick Martinez was signed to at least get a look at being a starting pitcher for the Reds this year, but I don't think they expected him to start as many games as he has. But he has been very, very solid and kind of held the pitching staff together a little bit with his performances. So is Jakob Junis. His last two starts, if you combine them two, there was a start against Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. And then you had, or about 10 days ago, sorry, I can't count. And then you had his most recent start. You put them together, he has 9 shutout innings of baseball. Fantastic stuff. But he's also been solid out of the bullpen. The Reds absolutely need to keep both these guys. Consider their contract situations for just a minute with me, because Jakob Junis has a mutual option for next year. So the Reds and Junis both have to agree that they want him back for next year. The Reds at least should. Junis is going to be a little bit more complicated than that. But hey, mutual option for $7 million. And that's where the complications arise, because how much does he want to bet on himself? How much does he want to bet on this year? He has a total of 51 innings pitched, but at the same time, it's not really in a certain role. He's kind of done a little bit of everything. He started 3 games total between the Brewers and the Reds, and he's pitched differing leverages during these times out of the bullpen. But he's been a very solid glue guy. Call him a glue guy for the bullpen. Maybe we'll figure out how to workshop that a little bit more. But, it's not often. Consider this. It's not often that pitchers come to Cincinnati and see their home run rate disappear. But that's what's happened to him. Because his home runs per 9, which, a rate statistic that Baseball Reference uses a lot, was 1.4 in Milwaukee. He comes to Cincinnati, it's 0.7. Literally cuts it in half. Then also consider that he is allowing less than a base runner per inning. His whip, his walks plus hits per innings pitched, is 0.88 as a Red. And on the season, it's like 0.90 because he was less than a base runner per inning for the Brewers as well. That is key. As much as you want to talk about ERA and look at FIP and XFIP and all those different numbers, for runs allowed, the numbers that talk about how many runs are scored against a guy. For a relief pitcher, base runners might be even more important, because consider they might come in and there might be some inherited base runners, and those guys won't get charged to their ERA, but the base runners that they allow are the reasons that those guys score. So all this to say, limiting base runners is a good thing, and that's what Jakob Junis does. He has 2 walks in 25 innings as a Red. I love that. And you couple him with Nick Martinez, who has a player option for $12 million for next year. If I were a betting man, and sometimes I am, it just depends on the day, but I would think that Nick Martinez bets on himself with this, because he's making $14 million this year. He could make $12 million if he picks up his player option. The Reds have no say in this. This is all Nick Martinez. But if he picks up his player option, he makes $12 million. If he thinks he can parlay the starting success that he has seen as a Red into a legitimate starting pitcher salary of, I don't know, another $14 million, maybe $15, $16, $17 million, he might go for that. But even if he does go for that, I think the Reds should definitely give him a call and see if they can make it work. Because you put these 2 guys together, and this is a fantastic stat. There are only 8 pitchers who have a better walk rate than these 2 guys. In the major leagues, Jakob Junis is 9th and Nick Martinez is 10th as far as walk rate is concerned. There are only 8 other pitchers in the entire league that are better at limiting walks than them. And they keep this pitching staff versatile. Think about where the Reds would be without these 2 guys for just a moment. I don't want there to be a situation where the Reds have to start them as much as they are doing right now. But the entire pitching staff, the entire starting rotation from opening day is all on the injured list. So we're seeing Nick Martinez and Jakob Junis pitch a lot more. Whether there's an opener coming in before them or they're starting the game, these guys are pitching 4, 5, 6 innings when they can. Junis, for the most part, is only getting to 5 innings because he's just been so efficient with his pitches. His last outing, albeit in a loss on Saturday, but that wasn't his fault, he pitched 5 innings with just 1 walk allowed. 5 no-hit innings. And he is mainly a relief pitcher who you can stretch out to 4 innings, 5 innings if everything's going right. Literally everything went right for him, except for one stupid call by that umpire on Saturday. Should have been strike 3. He called ball 3. The next pitch was ball 4. Whatever. I'm not mad about it. But Jakob Junis and Nick Martinez need to be here next year. The Reds need to make moves. They need to add to their bullpen. They need to maybe bring in another starting pitcher and things like this. But if you don't keep these 2 guys, you have to do a lot more than just add a couple of pitchers. Because the pitching staff is versatile because these 2 guys are on it. Not because they just make guys versatile. I know they tried this thing with Fernando Cruz last year, and they're trying it a little bit this year, where they start him as an opener, and if he pitches really well in the first inning, they bring him back out for the second inning. It doesn't work. He's a 1-inning guy, gets 3 outs, sometimes not even that. Anyway, before we get out of here, I would like to invite you to become a Locked On Reds insider. I'm offering a free 14-day trial to join me by texting the word INSIDER to 513-597-0944. We'll text back and forth daily about the Cincinnati Reds for the rest of this season and for the offseason as well. Plus, you can become that friend that everyone looks to for the Reds info. And as the offseason gets along, we get some rumors in and things like that. We'll be discussing rumors all the time. That's one of my favorite things to do with our Locked On Reds insider. So make sure that you join us today. Let's talk some Reds. Text the word INSIDER to 513-597-0944. After the 14-day free trial, it's $4.99 a month. But that'll wrap us up for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks as always for making us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, because Sully will get you ready for the Fall Classic every single day on Locked On MLB. In fact, I got a link for you to Locked On MLB in the description of today's episode. Just scroll down, find it, click on it. You don't have to search anything. Got you covered. Because, I love baseball, And I know you do too. And I know that you want to be talking Reds with me every single day. So make sure you check us out tomorrow. We see what the Reds do with this weird one-off game in Atlanta. But until then, you can count on the fact that I and that Steve, he'll be back with me tomorrow as well, will be Locked On Reds every single day.